Any parent knows that when your child is in pain, you're in pain. And this mom went on a mission to figure out why her daughter was suffering and what changes needed to be made in order to improve her daughter's health. In this segment, you'll meet Alaina Campbell, a mom on a mission. Welcome to another segment of the Freedom Kitchen Summit. I'm your host, Lisa Jendza, and today I have with me Alaina Campbell. She is a mom on a mission. Welcome to the summit, Alaina.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited for you to share your story. So you have a story about helping your daughter, and I imagine that many people in our audience today are wondering how they can help their child through the food choices that they make. How did you come about researching different foods for your daughter?
So when my daughter got to be in middle school, actually probably fifth grade, just prior to middle school, she started having a lot of gastrointestinal issues. She would throw up for no reason. She would have diarrhea. She complained about stomach aches all the time. And it was very frustrating. We took her to the, traditional doctor, and they couldn't find anything wrong with her. There were several times that we had her in the emergency room because we thought she had possibly appendicitis. And no one could seem to figure out what was wrong, what was the cause, what was the issue. And as a mom, it's the most frustrating thing in the world when your child day in and day out doesn't feel good and you can't get any answers from the doctors on what you need to do, on what is wrong, and how you can help your child. So I realized it was really up to me. I'm the mom, I'm the parent. It was up to me to figure out what was going on. So we started down the path of seeking out alternative health doctors, nutritionists, functional medicine doctors, to try and see if we could figure out what was going on with her. And it was a lot of testing, a lot of, we did the hair analysis, we did urine analysis. We did a lot of blood work, a lot of different tests with a couple of different doctors before we kind of figured out that she had an overgrowth of yeast. She had candida. She had been on an antibiotic when she was 1.5 to about almost 3 years old for ear infections. She kept getting ear infections and they kept putting her on antibiotics. And finally, they put her on a prophylactic antibiotic to try and prevent the need for tubes to be put in her ears. And that, of course, led to this overgrowth of candida, of yeast, all throughout her digestive tract that no doctor talks to you about, at least not most of your traditional primary care physicians or pediatrician, never brought up that she could have a yeast overgrowth or a candida overgrowth, and that could be what's causing a lot of these digestive issues. It wasn't until we started seeking out the alternative healthcare practitioners, that was brought up. So that was one of the issues. And an overgrowth of candida is extremely difficult to get under control. And we worked very hard at it, and then realized that she also had a sensitivity to gluten and to casein. So gluten, of course, is a protein that's in wheat, and then casein is a protein that's in dairy. And she had a lactose intolerance. So that led us down the path of looking even further to changing our diet, changing how we ate, so that we could help her heal. We needed to help her heal her gut, her microbiome, and B, we needed to be conscious about these sensitivities that she had to these certain proteins and sugars in dairy and gluten. So I had been part of an organization called the Weston A. Price Foundation because I grew up on a dairy farm. So I grew up eating a very traditional diet, not the standard American diet. I grew up drinking raw milk every single day of my life. My parents drank raw milk from the time they were, born as well. I ate vegetables that were from our garden. My mom canned those vegetables. We ate meat that was raised on our farm. So I ate a very, traditional farming diet that was very high in nutrients and nutrition. And I didn't even realize until I went down this path with my daughter how much my health had been affected by what I was eating once I left the farm. So I was no longer consuming the raw dairy. I was eating traditional, wheat products. I was not eating, a lot of fresh vegetables out of our own garden that were naturally organic because we didn't spray any pesticides or anything on our garden. I wasn't eating, meat that we had raised on the farm on grass, grass-fed beef, or at least beef that was fed hay and clover most of the year. And in Michigan, you can't, grass-fed is hard year-round for cattle. But I didn't even realize it until I went down this path with my daughter, how much my health had been affected as well, and why I was experiencing some of the struggles with weight gain after I had children and that I was experiencing. So it was really it's life-changing because a mother, as you know, will do just about anything to help their child. We will move mountains, and build bridges and do whatever we need to do to help our child. And it was a wonderful wake-up call for the whole family to look at how we were eating and work to provide better choices. And that's what led me down the path of starting to create nutrient-dense food. One of the things my daughter and I loved to do together was bake. It was a special time for us to make chocolate chip cookies, to make muffins, to make a cake. She at one point started culinary school. She actually thought she might want to go into culinary. She was the baker in the family when we needed a 50th anniversary cake for my mom and dad's wedding anniversary. She made it. So finding out that she couldn't, she needed to avoid gluten, we thought, what are we going to bake? How can we bake anything anymore, right? So I thought there has to be a way, there has to be recipes out there. There has to be a way that we can come up with some recipes that are nutrient dense and gluten-free. And that was the other key, because when you look at gluten-free products, they're devoid of nutritional value for the most part. They're still using white flour and white sugar. They're using white rice flour that doesn't have gluten in it, or they're using potato starch that doesn't have gluten in it. So yes, it's gluten-free, but it still doesn't have nutrition in it. So it was, how do I come up with something that's nutrient dense, that my children will like, because that's the second key. They have to want to eat it. If you're trying to force it into them, that's not going to work. So that's what led me down that path. And we had already been also dealt with some of that as well with my son. We realized when he was 10 years old that artificial colors were very detrimental for him. They made him very excitable. We gave him a Gatorade one day. He had never had Gatorade. We were on a trip. We stopped at a gas station. He wanted a yellow colored Gatorade. We thought, yeah, sure, why not? And within 10 minutes, he was bouncing off the walls. He was just out of control, so excited and hyped up, and we were shocked. We were like, oh my gosh, what, what happened? And at first we thought it was the sugar, and it took a little bit of time to figure out that it wasn't the sugar necessarily, it was the dyes. It was the red dye. And it was actually my dad who brought up that it might be the dye, because he's allergic to maraschino. He cannot eat red dye. So he had some maraschino cherries one time, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, and he broke out in hives within about 10 minutes. And it took him a bit to figure out, it was the same thing, the red dye in the maraschino cherries. And he was actually the one that said, were there some artificial dyes in that, in what you gave him? And so that helped us figure that out. So it's sad that there are so many things added to our food that causes so many issues.
Mm-hmm.
And that's allowed.
Mm-hmm.
And that so few people talk about it or advocate to remove these things from the food, or at least educate people about the detrimental effects that it has. I used to get so upset about the school lunches. Absolutely horrific. I volunteered to be on my school's food service committee because I thought that I would be able to help make some changes. And there were quite a few of us on the committee that were very excited about making some changes in the food service. But do you know your local school district probably makes money off their food service program?
Yes.
That is one area they make money off of.
So does the parent-teacher committee. So that's what I found at my school. The parent-teacher committee put in the slushy machine to make money for the PTC activities.
Mm-hmm.
So they would justify it that junk food that they sold funded like the athletics.
Right.
The irony of that is still pretty shocking to me.
Yes. And then they wonder why children can't behave or sit still or focus during the school day. And then the parent gets the call that they think your child has ADD or ADHD or behavioral issues, when so often it can be traced back to what the child has been given to eat. Yes. Whether it's in the free lunch program, the free breakfast program, or giving them cereal, that's full of dyes and artificial preservatives and everything to start their day. So it was quite a journey.
Yeah. I do want to point out that you said it took a while. It's not an overnight answer. When you see your child suffering or struggling and there are no answers, and you did everything, you did hair analysis, urine analysis, blood work. And I know of other parents who've been told we can't find any issue. There's no issue here. And unfortunately, we're not always looking at nutrition because we don't always honor the link between nutrition and health.
Exactly.
But that is the foundation. That is the fuel that we give our body. And it needs to be the first place that we look.
Exactly. If you put water in your engine, in your vehicle, it will not run. It will ruin your engine. So the right fuel has to go in order for the right output, of energy and focus and health for the correct outcome.
So we're seeing an increase of digestive issues. We have so many kids that complain of digestive issues, and then gluten intolerance, lactose intolerance. We have all of these allergies are on the rise. And so it seems daunting, right? As a parent, you're like, where's the support and how do I do this? But it is truly just a process of elimination unless you found a shortcut.
Right. And I'm glad you brought that up, because when we talk to you about gluten or about dairy, one of the huge mistakes that we have made as a society is how we're processing that food. So in a traditional diet, back when your grandparents and great grandparents and beyond were consuming those products, your grains, nuts, or seeds were more than likely soaked overnight. They were sprouted before they consumed them, or before they then dried them and made them, ground it into flour or into nut butter. They drank raw dairy. They did not have the refrigeration that we have today. So they drank a lot of raw dairy, and they drank a lot of fermented dairy. They were making kefir out of it, or even soured milk. They drank, our ancestors drank a lot of sour milk. We would turn our nose up at it today and think that's disgusting, that's bad for you. But if it's raw milk that has been soured, it's so good for you. It's full, it's just teeming with good bacteria that's going to feed your microbiome, your gut, your digestive tract. And so in our modern, food processing, society, we've cut steps out. So we don't soak the nuts, the grains, or the seeds anymore, because then it makes it, you're cutting costs out, you're cutting time out then, right? We got very scared of a little bit of bacteria in the milk. So the thing that I would tell people growing up on a dairy farm in today's world, that milk comes straight from the cow's udder right into a milking machine through a closed pipeline system straight into a bulk tank where it's immediately cooled. It never even is exposed to the air. It's completely in a closed pipeline system. Our process of milking cows and then getting that milk from the farm to the dairy is so much safer than it was when it was getting milked into a bucket by hand, and then it was getting poured into a milk can, and then that milk can was picked up by the dairy, and then they were pouring the milk from the milk cans into the bottles. Like, we have a much safer system today. The likelihood of contamination is so low for our milk now. We don't need that pasteurization, and that pasteurization has ruined the milk. It has literally killed every good thing in the milk, and every vitamin has to be added back in synthetically. So all the vitamins that are in milk are man-made. They're synthetic. They're not the real vitamins that came out of that cow, that our body needs, the most of to process and be helpful for us. Homogenization is where they break the fat molecule down so small that that cream doesn't rise to the top of the milk anymore. That's what homogenization does. It breaks that fat, that layer of cream down, those molecules down so small that they stay integrated into the milk. Well, there's studies now that are showing that that's what's collecting in your arteries and causing a lot of issues, heart disease, arteriosclerosis, things like that, because we've altered that molecule, we changed it. And now our body has to figure out what to do with it. Oh, this is not in the form that it's supposed to be in. Now I have to figure out what to do with it. Doesn't know what to do with it, so it collects in a place where it shouldn't collect. Instead of being something that's healthy, that cream, that is so amazing and healthy for people, we've ruined it, which is, as you know, what we've done with so many of our foods, with the processing that it goes through. And don't even get me started on glyphosate, Roundup. So I grew up on a dairy farm. We grew up raising wheat and corn and soybeans and hay. And back when I was growing up, you sprayed the Roundup on the plant when it was about 2 or 3 inches high or 4 inches high. And then it was not sprayed on there again. Okay. Now, and I'm sad that we did that, but that's how, farmers were taught to farm, right? To raise their yield so that they could hopefully make enough money to support their family, which is extremely difficult on a family farm. Now they spray the wheat with glyphosate right before they harvest it to kill the wheat. It's not about killing the weeds. When we sprayed it on at 3 or 4 inches high, it was to kill the weeds, right? So that the plant had a chance to grow, right? And you had a better yield. They now spray the glyphosate onto the wheat right before they harvest to kill the wheat, because then it's easier to harvest. That goes straight into the grain bin at the big, huge, grain facility, and it's never washed off. It's not washed off there. There's no way for them to wash that off of there. At least when we were spraying the Roundup when the plant was 2 or 3 inches high, you've got days, weeks of that plant still growing, and rain is coming down on it, and it's, it is dissipating, some of that Roundup. It's not good for the ground. Don't get me wrong. It's not good, but I'm saying the process has so changed. They started, I think, spraying the glyphosate in the 80s on the wheat right before they harvested it. So
I often say, I wonder if we have a wheat intolerance or we have a glyphosate intolerance.
I think you're exactly right. Is it? Well, gluten, our wheat has been hybridized. It's not been genetically modified, but it's been hybridized to the point where now, instead of, I think it's 23 chromosomes a heritage wheat will have, it's now up to something like 90 chromosomes in the wheat. So it's not even really a natural product. I don't even know if you can call it wheat anymore.
Right.
I mean, yes, you can. But I know I found a lot of heritage wheats, flours that I purchase that have not been hybridized, that are in their original ancient grain form,
right,
without that alteration.
That's why, I always say there's guilty by association, right? So are we really lactose intolerant, or we're intolerant because we took the lactase out? We killed all the enzymes. So are we really lactose intolerant? Am I really allergic to cow's milk, or is it only because it's pasteurized and homogenized that I have inflammation? Am I really intolerant to wheat and gluten, or am I intolerant to the fact that the plant has been altered, or it has so many pesticides that my body is rejecting it because of the pesticides? It's really hard to know, except that we know allergies are increasing.
Mm-hmm.
They're at an all-time
high. Food allergies. Yeah, food allergies are astronomical.
When you take the ServSafe certification in allergy training now, like every restaurant, anyone who works in a restaurant has to have an allergy certification, because we have so many allergies now. And the families coming in, God bless them, they have someone in every family who can't have eggs or nuts or wheat or dairy or, I've met some families, there's so many allergies. They show me their lists and they say, we can't cook anything for the whole family.
Right. They're cooking 2 or 3 separate meals for each.
And it's not getting any better. Right. It's not going to get better on its own.
And that's the real tragedy, right? It's not being recognized. We know these food allergies are increasing. We know autoimmune diseases are increasing. We know cancer is, I mean, there's so many things that are not getting better. We're not winning this war, yet we're not willing either to look at what is the possible cause here and make that correlation.
Well, that's why I thought it was so important to have you on, because you understand the difference between a traditional diet and the standard American diet. And the traditional diet, going back to eating off of the land, knowing where our food is coming from, knowing how it was raised, how it was sourced, sourcing local. And I know you're a huge proponent of that. You're involved in the Weston A. Price Foundation. You've also done a lot with the Michigan Farm to Family. So you are very involved in local, regional, and you even help food producers. So I know this is a passion of yours, and we want to help more families to understand where to start, because it is a process of elimination.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think I'm at that point now too, where I want to even go to that next level, which is talking about regenerative farming. So I very much grew up on a farm. Yes, we did not use as much of the chemicals and things that they do now, but we were still using the Roundup, putting anhydrous on. Now I'm fascinated by regenerative farming, which is your traditional methods of pasturing animals and changing the pasturing. And it's the animals, it's pasturing them on the field that is replenishing that soil with the microbiome that it needs in order to be healthy soil. Crop rotation. Farmers are getting better with crop rotation and no-till farming. But now that next step is getting those animals back on that field, rotating around those fields, so that they're being replenished with good bacteria from the animal's, gut. And the animal is providing all kinds of benefit to that ground. And that's like the next level that I'm learning about and excited about learning about. And we still have our 200 and some acre farm. My mom and dad are still there. My nephews are growing about 10 acres of hops. And then the rest of it is being leased out right now to a neighbor. But at some point, we hope to have control of that land again. And my dream is to bring that soil back to the healthy level that it needs to be at, and make it a regenerative farm that can provide healthy food.
That is so important, because the average age of a farmer now is 65, and many of their kids don't want to take the farms over. Mm-hmm. And so we're in a crisis. So, this summit is about gathering in the kitchen to literally solve one of the biggest problems facing us today, and that is our choices and the direction in which we're going to take this food ecosystem, because our choices dictate that. So everyone listening to this has a choice in what they spend their money on and what they condone. So where are they going to place that? But also to be aware that there are farms available, and we want to make sure that as these farmers retire, the next generation comes up behind them and wants to continue family farming. There's a huge opportunity in regenerative agriculture right now, and a huge opportunity to take over the reins of a lot of these farms.
Mm-hmm. And I think the other thing too that's important is our local economy. When you are supporting a local farm, you're supporting your local economy as well. And that's important. And I think it's important to have local food sources. We all saw what happened when the pandemic occurred in the beginning, month or two, we started to see empty shelves at the grocery store because we were reliant on a few large processing plants to provide that, those products. And when they had to shut down, we saw food shortages. When you have a local food economy, it's much less likely to be disrupted when something happens like that. And then you're also supporting a local family. And one of the things we have to, as a society, grapple with, I guess, and address is how do we ensure, or how do we work on ensuring that a local farm can survive, that you can make a living, a decent living off the work that you do, right? Creating those food products. And that's, why many dairy farms went out of business in the 80s. The early 80s were extremely difficult. The oil embargo happened in the late 70s. Interest rates skyrocketed. Many small family farms went out of business. And they got gobbled up by larger corporations or by developers. The land was bought by developers and developed, but that's how we've come to this point too, where so much of our food is produced by a very few large corporations. We need to address how do we ensure that a local farmer or a small family farm can make enough money off that land to survive, because they are by and large producing a much higher quality product than at a factory farm. And we all know about the factory farms with thousands and thousands of chickens in a cage that never see the light of day. They can't even turn around in the cage. We all know about the very large feedlots with thousands of head of cattle crammed in, where now you have the issue of what to do with their waste. That's creating a whole nother problem, because they're not out on the land being pastured like they should be. Our food production has to change.
Yes.
And that changes not only the quality of food that we then get to eat and put in our bodies, but it changes the quality of our environment, of our earth. Literally, we're regenerating the earth then. Instead of losing our topsoil, which is whole nother huge issue that we could talk about. We're losing topsoil every year. We're losing a tremendous amount of our topsoil to erosion because of our farming practices, that will be very difficult to get back. And there are some that are predicting, that we're going to be in a major crisis by the year 2040 with our topsoil in this country. Are we going to have a desert?
I think that we're at a tipping point, and I that's why I wanted to invite everyone into the kitchen to become conscious and mindful of their choices. And it could be that they have children with food allergies, and they're going to have to do the work of the process of elimination, which is really what I teach as well, is an elimination protocol, because it's the only way to find out what works for you and what works for everyone in your family. You bring to it, though, that traditional diet, knowledge of the traditional diet to the standard American diet, and you could see the difference. But I remember you saying that it was your daughter that made you hyper aware and gave you the purpose to go search, but then you realized how much your health had declined gradually as you had moved to a standard American diet and moved off the farm.
That's exactly right. And I really had taken for granted, I think, how I was raised when I moved away from home and got out on my own and was making, my own food choices that were different. And it really was a wake-up call, when she started having issues. It was a wake-up call to me. It was a wake-up call to the whole family that we needed to really take a hard look at how we were eating, what we were eating, how our food was, processed, how it was grown, where was it coming from, and how could we, do better, so that we felt better. And that's right. That's the whole key. We all just want to feel good. We want to have energy. We want to have focus. We want to be able to go out and have the energy to do the things that we want to do and enjoy our lives, with that abundant, energy.
But I would posit that most people don't even know because it creeps up on us. So until there is a health crisis, most people don't know that they don't feel good. Like they don't know how good they can feel because it's been so long since they felt that good. And that's what I hear from my students is, wow, I didn't even know how crappy I felt until I started to feel good.
Right, right. And I think that's what we see, right, with a lot of people, like all of a sudden, oh, they have gallstones, or all of a sudden they have kidney stones, or all of a sudden they have issues with their colon and they've got to have part of it removed, or diverticulitis, or all a whole array of things. Like all of a sudden the tipping point comes, right, where the body breaks down because it's been years and years and years and years of abuse, to the point where all of a sudden you have a problem. And so often we don't correlate that with what we've been doing for the last 20 years.
I know.
Well, why do you get gallstones? Or why do you don't just all of a sudden have a problem, right? We know that. It's something that has been building up for a very long time. And now you're seeing the result of those choices. There's the tipping point.
Yeah. And I would say that we reached a point of apathy. Like, this is just as good as I feel. And there's all kinds of excuses we make. Well, I'm aging. I mean, I'm 40, I'm 50, I'm this, I'm that. I've had 2 kids. I mean, we think because these events have happened, we shouldn't feel as good as we used to. And I'm here to say you can feel better at 50 than you do at 30 if you change, your diet and your lifestyle. So it's totally possible, but we have apathy. And now I think we're developing this level of apathy for the number of allergies we see around us. Like, it's just a sign of the times. I mean, everyone has an allergy. Why are we saying that this is okay when we can address it? We can find what it is that's causing it. And we can start with our own kids and our own health. And then hopefully we start to think bigger, like shopping local, regional, helping our local farmers, possibly investing in a farm. There is such a thing as buying cow shares, goat shares. Support your local farmer, own part of the farm.
Right. CSAs, community supported agriculture programs. Yes, exactly. And that's how we too can make a difference, is by how we spend our dollars.
Mm-hmm.
We do have the power of the dollar to make changes. And we have seen, I know, within the last 20 years, and you've seen it too, a huge increase in the number of organic products that are available, and the issue of genetically modified foods. Have become people have become much more aware of that. And, we've seen a dramatic increase in the availability of organically grown foods. And we're seeing companies that are taking high fructose corn syrup out of their products, that are taking artificial colors and flavors out of their product. And that's because of us, the consumer, choosing not to spend our dollars on those products anymore, and instead choosing to spend our dollars on the healthier products. So we do have the power to make these changes happen with our pocketbook. We can vote.
I would say the most powerful group on this planet, the most powerful group of people are moms. And when us moms all come together and we realize we don't want to feed our kids chemicals and we want to feel good. I mean, listen, people say, what do you want to live forever? No, but I want to age gracefully and I want to feel good while I'm here. And I don't want someone to have to take care of me.
Right. And I
I
don't
mean,
want to end up in the hospital with this issue and that issue and this surgery and that surgery.
yeah. So we need to choose wisely and know what's possible. But when us moms come together and we realize like they're putting chemicals in our food, we're feeding food dye to our kids, and that is not acceptable. And when we say that's not acceptable and we stop buying things with the food dyes and the high fructose corn syrup, they won't make it. They're not going to make something if it doesn't sell.
Right. If there's not a market for it, they're not going to make it.
Because they are about the bottom line.
Mhm.
And if something is sitting on the shelves and not moving, they're not going to profit off of it.
That's exactly right.
So
and honestly, they're making the things that consumers want, because consumers are buying it. If you're buying it and you're spending your money on it, they're like, well, you want it, so we're going to continue to make it. If we stop spending our dollars on it, they will discontinue making it, and they'll make something else that's better. You know, truly, we do have the power. And I think sometimes we forget that. And you're right about moms. We are like mama bears when it comes to our cubs.
Yes. Yes. And that's why I think what you did was so important. And I think every mom needs to hear that it's possible. If you have a child with an unexplained illness, an unexplained allergy, it is wonderful. We have many wonderful medical and health professionals, but ultimately it comes down to you. You're living with that child and it's your mother's intuition. So you need to keep experimenting and keep trying. And it is possible.
And that's exactly right. And I'm glad you brought that up about a mother's intuition. You do know your child better than anyone. And if your child tells you, I don't feel good, I still don't feel good, this isn't helping or this isn't working, you listen. Because I got told by so many doctors that her stomach aches were psychosomatic. Oh, she doesn't want to go to school. That's why she has a stomach ache.
It's stress.
Right. And that was not what was going on. I kept pushing down that path to figure it out. I kept seeking out doctors. I talked to other moms who I knew also had children with different issues, got referrals from them for alternative healthcare practitioners. I mean, we just kept going until we got to the bottom of it.
Yeah, well, I think you're inspiration for all of the audience, and also your passion, your knowledge, and your passion about farming and bringing that awareness to the audience that there is hope, but we are at a point in time when we have some critical decisions to make, and there's critical thinking to do about where we spend our dollars, what we're investing in, and what we want for our future. And I believe that we've got to choose wisely if we want to leave something better for our kids, because the trajectory we're on is we're leaving them a world that's worse than what we inherited. And so something has to change. And I believe it starts with moms.
Yeah. That's right.
So Alaina, you're also a business consultant and you help emerging healthy food brands. There's a process, right, called Retail Ready?
Yes, yes. So my journey to get our product out onto retail shelves was quite the learning experience. I had never created a food product, prior to this. So it was an absolutely it's been a fascinating journey that I've thoroughly enjoyed. I have a tremendous amount of experience working with small businesses. My background is as the executive director of a chamber of commerce. So I've worked with small businesses for the last 12 years, helping them grow their businesses. So when it was time for me to create my own business and my own product and get that out there, because I wanted to help other people as well. I was able to utilize all of that background that I've learned from working at the Chamber of Commerce. And it's a really exciting process. Actually, I find it extremely motivating and fun, actually, to every day move that forward, and what's the next thing, that we can do to grow this, to grow the product line, and to get it more widely distributed out there. So it's something that's I'm very passionate about. It combines two loves, helping small businesses, and also helping get a healthy food product out there on the market so that people have more choices.
Yeah, I always say that too. My two loves, business and food.
Yep.
Business and food. So you are like the real deal. You're farmer, you're a Weston A price and natural traditional diet kind of mom. You've been through food allergies with your kids. You live a very natural life. You've developed a healthy food product to help sustain more people. You teach people how to sprout. You teach them what nutrient dense means. And now you're teaching people how to create a healthy food product so that we have better options in the future.
Right. I'm so excited to help others get a healthy food product onto the market, because we all know we need more of those.
Yes, we do. Well, it's been such a pleasure having you today. Thank you for joining me on this summit. And where can the listeners find you?
So they can find me on LinkedIn, Alaina Campbell. We have a website, sproutbake.com, for our Sprout Bake product. We also have a Facebook page for Sprout Bake as well that they can follow us on to see what new stores we're coming to.
That's awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure having all of you with us today, and I hope that you all learned something. Until next time, farewell. Welcome back to the Freedom Kitchen Summit. I'm Lisa Jendza, your host. And if you haven't figured out by now, I love food, and I love healthy food, which is what makes me so honored to have Sprout Bake as one of our sponsors on this summit. With us today, we have Alaina Campbell, the founder of Sprout Bake, and she is going to show us all about this product. Welcome to the show, Alaina.
Lisa, I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited to be part of the Freedom Kitchen Summit.
That you have a passion for health just as I do. So how did Sprout Bake come about?
You are right. I do have a passion for health. So I grew up on a dairy farm, milking cows twice a day. We ate a diet that was a very traditional, not a traditional diet in today's terms, but a traditional diet in terms of what our great-grandparents would have eaten and how their food was prepared. We had a garden, we ate the animals that we raised off of our land, and we drank raw milk because we were dairy farmers. Our milk was not pasteurized or homogenized. It was literally about straight from the cow. So that was how I grew up. We didn't drink pop, we didn't have cereal, we didn't have all of those processed foods that we ate. I got away from that, of course, once I went off to college and started my life off the farm. I started eating a more traditional diet. And when I had my children, my daughter started having a lot of gastrointestinal issues, a lot of upset stomachs, stomach aches, that sort of thing. We were trying to figure out what's going on with her. And it's doctor after doctor after doctor trying to figure this out. And finally realized that she had a gluten sensitivity and a dairy sensitivity. So I started delving into, why is this? Why are all of a sudden all these people ending up with gluten intolerances, dairy intolerances, all these food allergies? Well, it's the way we prepare, it's the way we grow, and prepare our food in today's modern world. It's not the way our ancestors did it. So I learned about the Weston A. Price Foundation, which I've been a member of for 20 years now. And that's where I learned about sprouting, your nuts and grains and seeds. That's where I learned about the benefits of raw milk, which as a kid growing up, I didn't know why raw milk was better for me than pasteurized milk. That was just what we had, and that's what we drank. So those were two of the major things that were causing a lot of her problems. So we went on a quest to figure out how could we come up with a nutrient-dense, gluten-free, dairy-free product that my kids would want to eat in the morning for breakfast. So that's how Sprout Week was born, out of necessity.
Yeah, necessity is the mother of all invention, right? And as a mom, we'll do anything for our kids. So this truly was created organically because it was created out of need and it was created out of your knowledge. So tell me about sprouting and why you use sprouted ingredients.
So I didn't know any of this. Even when I was growing up on the farm, we didn't prepare our food in this way. I learned it through the Weston A. Price Foundation and a wonderful cookbook called Nourishing Traditions. Sprouting is when you take a nut, a grain, or a seed and you soak it in water overnight with a little bit of acid like lemon juice or whey. And what that does, and that's all you have to do is soak it overnight. We're not talking about the process of sprouting where the little green sprout starts coming out. That's really good too. But if you want to make a baked product with it, you're not going to let it get quite to that stage. So you soak it in this water with a little bit of acid overnight. And what that does is it breaks down the outer coating. So if you look at a seed or a nut or a grain, it has a little outer coating on it, a hull, maybe a lot of people will call it. And that's to protect it, right? So that when it gets in the right conditions in the soil with some moisture, it can break through that and start to grow and sprout. But it's protected until it gets to that point. Kind of like the shell of an egg, is protecting, that embryo until it's grown enough to get out. So that's exactly what the outside of the nut or seed or shell does. Well, that outer coating is hard for us to digest. It's difficult for our body to break that down, and that can cause a lot of gastrointestinal issues. Well, in today's modern world of, food manufacturing, we don't sprout our nuts or grains or seeds anymore. Somebody knew, somebody who created the nut, the grain, or the seed knew that in order for us to digest it properly, we needed to soak it overnight. Also, what that does is once you put that nut, grain, or seed in that little bit of water overnight, a whole bunch of amazing things start to happen in the seed because it's now preparing to grow. So all kinds of enzymes start to form and become available. And when that happens, and then we consume it, that is also now available to our body, much more available to us, all those great enzymes and nutrients our body can now utilize. So it's a fascinating process. And I do grow sprouts to eat as well. I have tons of different seeds at home that I sprout on my countertop, and we consume those. Great way to have a salad all winter long is to grow your own sprouts. But for this, we're just using the sprouted product as a flour product. So we use sprouted oat flour, and then we use sprouted almond butter in our product. So that's our quest, is to always use sprouted ingredients.
So you mentioned a few things in there that our traditional diet when you lived on the farm is different than the standard diet that people are eating today. And you learned because you grew up on a farm, but you also learned from the Weston A. Price Foundation how our ancestors did things. So what you're sharing with us about sprouting is something that would benefit everybody. I would think most of the listeners probably aren't aware that what they're using, even the almond flour that I buy, at Costco, is not sprouted.
Exactly. Exactly. And again, it's one of those lost kind of traditions, just like fermented food. Back before refrigeration, this is what we have to remember, right? Back before we had refrigeration, people had to preserve their food so that over the winter, right, they had enough food. So they had a lot of fermented products. They would ferment vegetables to keep over the winter time. And dairy, people drank soured milk. It's perfectly fine for you. It's actually really good for you because, again, once the milk sits and sours a little bit, it's got all kinds of amazing good bacteria for your gut in it. And kefir, people would make kefir or kefir, sometimes people say it. And that's a fermented milk product. It's so good for your gut health and your microbiome. And then, of course, you have the soured milk, and cheese is another, way that dairy would be preserved by making cheese. But, we've gotten away from these. I mean, now if you had soured milk, you would turn your nose up at it. We would think that, oh, that's disgusting, it's bad. And yes, if it's pasteurized milk and it's soured, don't drink it. It is not good for you because the pasteurization has killed every good thing in that milk that would take it to that next level once it's soured to be good for you. So that's a huge difference. When we pasteurize that milk and we homogenize it, we've completely altered it. It is not a life-giving food anymore. It's lacking all of those amazing enzymes and nutrients that it needs so that when it sours or it ferments into kefir, then it's good for you.
Yes. Oh, so life-giving food. Food is supposed to give us life.
Exactly.
It's not just supposed to fill us up for the moment, right? It's supposed to give us life. So tell me about Sprout Bake and what you've got in those yummy treats there.
So what I did today was I've got a few things that I can show you, all the different ways that you can use our product, but I'll start out by telling you a little bit about it. So our Sprout Bake we sell it in this 16-ounce container as a frozen batter. So you can buy this frozen, take it home, stick it in your freezer. And then the great thing is, whenever you want to bake something fresh, you just take this out and thaw it. And now you've got a thaw, scoop, and bake product. Super simple and easy. It keeps up to 6 months in the freezer. You can thaw it in the refrigerator overnight. It'll be ready in the morning for you to scoop. And then it's good in the refrigerator for up to 7 days. So you can thaw this container on Sunday night in the fridge. Monday morning, you can bake a couple muffins or a couple quick breads, whatever you need, stick it back in the fridge. Now Tuesday morning, you can take it out. You can scoop a couple more, bake them fresh, put it back in the fridge. That's the beauty of the product, is the convenience. The other cool thing about it is once you thaw it, you can add anything you want to it. You can customize it. So how awesome is that? So if you like nuts, you can stir nuts in. If you like blueberries, you can stir in blueberries. If you like dried cranberries, you can throw in dried cranberries. If you want to add chia seeds, you can add chia seeds. We have a lemon chia seed flavor, and that's great with blueberries stirred in or dried cranberries stirred in. We have a pumpkin spice. That's awesome if you want to add some nuts to it and stir those in. So that's a really neat way that you can customize it to how your family likes things or likes to eat them. I've got here, I'm holding my sweet potato cinnamon with chocolate chip. the other thing that I want to point out, in addition to the sprouted oat flour and the sprouted almond butter that's in here, we also have sweet potato. So trying to pack in, again, that nutrition. And as a mom, I was always trying to sneak those vegetables into my children. So this was a great way to hide a vegetable into a baked good. We also use coconut sugar because, of course, that is much less processed than a regular white sugar is. It still has a lot of great enzymes in it and nutrition in it because it hasn't been processed and bleached and all of the things that they, do to white sugar. So we use coconut sugar. And then we also use applesauce. That's for most unsweetened applesauce. And that's how we get most of our sweetness in the product is through the applesauce. So again, trying to pack it with good, high quality, nutrient dense ingredients into the product. We have 5 flavors. We have sweet potato cinnamon with chocolate chip, and you can see over here, we've got other flavors stacked up. We have pumpkin spice. We have double chocolate. So that's a chocolate using raw cacao powder and dairy-free chocolate chips in there. We have a chocolate 5-spice, and that one's really interesting. That has Chinese 5-spice in it. So it has a little bit of a licorice flavor for those who like licorice. And then I mentioned we have our lemon chia seed. Now our lemon chia seed has butternut squash in it instead of the sweet potato. The sweet potato was a little bit strong for the lemon, didn't quite go well, but the butternut squash, you can't even tell it's in the lemon chia seed. And of course it has chia seeds in it as well. And then of course the pumpkin has pumpkin in it to get that yummy pumpkin flavor. So, and then I've got here a few ways that you can prepare it. Because like I said, once you thaw it, you can bake it in just about any form that you want to. So I baked some of these in these cute little quick bread containers. I've made some of them as little madeleines here. And if you wanted to fancy these up, you could sprinkle some coconut sugar on the top so it would glisten and shine a little bit. I made some whoopie pies with the double chocolate. And there's this amazing pan that you can buy, which is super simple to use. So it's very shallow, and you just scoop your batter in there and bake it, and you comes out with these little wafers that you can fill with whatever you want to put in the middle. And then, of course, on the bottom, I've got just regular mini muffins. And, of course, you can bake them as regular size muffins, mini muffins. And then this would be, amazing. This is the double chocolate. You can make this for your kids and just put a little bit of, whatever frosting you like on top. And you've got cupcakes. And it has sweet potato in it. I mean, that's amazing, right? What a way to trick your kids on their birthday.
Well, I think this is fabulous. You have managed to keep this a low glycemic index product using only coconut sugar and applesauce. And so by using applesauce, that's actually a lower glycemic index than apple juice. We do see that in a lot of the processed foods. They like to use about 4 different sweeteners, and they think we don't notice that they put that apple juice concentrate in there. But applesauce actually brings in the fiber. You have the fiber with the sweet potatoes and the butternut squash, and then you're sprouting the oats and the almonds, the almond butter. So they are packed full of nutrients, easy to digest, a great way to slip some vegetables into our kids. That's amazing. So it has to be frozen because it's a healthy product, right?
Yes, there are no preservatives in it. So that's one reason why when you bake the muffins fresh or anything fresh, it's good on the counter. You can leave it out on the counter for a couple of days. But if you want it to last more than a couple days, I would put them in anything that you've baked in the refrigerator. Or, of course, you can bake it and freeze it too. and then thought, if you don't even want to bake something in the morning, you could bake them ahead of time and freeze them, and then just pull it out the night before, and it's, you know, thawed for you in the morning. So really super simple and easy. And that was what I was trying to come up with. And honestly, like you said, you know, I did this for myself, right? For my family. That's how I came up with it. And I was a busy mom working full time. I couldn't get up and whip up a batch of muffins every single morning for my kids, right? So I was making the batter on Sunday and sticking it in the fridge. And then I was baking it, you know, every morning for them. And so that's how we came up with the idea of, oh, we can package it and freeze it. And then the consumer can have the same convenience.
Yeah, that's brilliant. You know, I do cook mostly from scratch, but sometimes, you know, we're in a pinch, we need something, we have an event to go to, we need to take a dish to pass, and I have to whip something up, or a busy morning. I don't have kids at home anymore, but I remember those mornings. So that was brilliant for you to have frozen batter and just scoop out what you needed each day for them to have fresh breakfast muffins.
Right. And when you say made from scratch, I mean, this is made from scratch. You know, there are no extra chemicals, preservatives, you know, artificial colors, you know, nothing like that. They are just all straight out wholesome ingredients that you would use in your kitchen to make something that was healthy from scratch. And you mentioned earlier too the glycemic index, and I'm glad you brought that up. One of the great advantages of sprouted oat flour is it's about at the middle of the glycemic index. So most of your gluten-free products that you would, baked products that you would buy at the store have white rice flour, potato starch, still white flours, and they're very high on the glycemic index, whereas the sprouted oat flour is in the middle. So, you know, much better than what's used in a lot of the other gluten-free products that are out there. And sprouted oat flour is it's hard to find. It's not widely available yet. It's getting better. Sprouted flours are getting a little bit more easy to find. But, you know, 20 years ago, you know, it was practically non-existent unless you were doing it yourself.
Yeah, I applaud you. I got onto this healthy way of living 13 years ago, and I thought it was hard then finding healthy ingredients. And now I think consumers are being duped, as we have been in the past, of what's healthy and what's not. And so we assume anything in the grocery store that's gluten-free is healthy. And what we're talking about today is a nutrient-dense food. How can they get in touch with you?
So they can go to our website at sproutbake.com. And on the website, we list all the places where the product is available locally. And then we also have all kinds of videos on there, all these ways that I showed you how you can use the product. There's these ideas plus more on there. Many food entrepreneurs and food startups know distribution is a big hurdle, and it's compounded a little bit because we have a frozen product as well. So we're trying to figure out the shipping, you know, how we can affordably ship the product direct to consumers. But yes, we will be working with Market Wagon this fall and be available through Market Wagon in the Detroit region this fall. And we're really excited about that.
Well, we loved seeing inside of your kitchen. You know, originally I was going to call this kitchen to kitchen because it's, you know, from my kitchen to your kitchen, or from my heart to your heart, is how I feel about this topic. And I think all of our conscious consumers on this summit may be able to help us with some of the distribution challenges. But I'm sure, if nothing else, they're just happy to learn that you exist and that you've created this amazing product. So thank you so much for sponsoring this summit, and thank you for all of the good work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for including me. I really appreciate it.
All right, guys, until the next episode, farewell.